Well, hello. Welcome to another episode of What Nobody Told Me After 65. Well, it's your lady on the go, lady in the know, Miss Info. You've reached the information nation where knowledge is shared and wisdom exchanged for the betterment of a people. I don't feel good. Sinuses, allergies, I don't know what you want to call it. And we're having a terrible thunderstorm here for the last couple of hours. And I took medication, and so I'm going to be brief. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the city of Detroit when they went bankrupt. Now, whether or not many of you remember it, I remember it. I remember it being in the news. And I was thinking to myself, a whole city declaring bankruptcy? But that was in July of 2013. And it was the largest municipal bankruptcy filing in the U.S. history at the time. I'm hoping it's still the largest. And they had, it went from 1.8 million people to 700,000 people. Yeah, that's a lot. They lost a lot of people. Of course, the automobile industry had declined. Steel plants had closed up. People couldn't make a living. And I'm trying to remember who was in office at the time. Who was the president? But I'll figure that out and I'll put it up. And finally, to dig themselves out of debt, they did something very drastic that I didn't agree with. I still don't agree with. And I think they're coming out of bankruptcy. I think they finished it and came out on the other side. But let's talk a little bit about the fact that 600 cities, towns, and counties have done the same thing. Yes. As of June 2012, I think it was, when they started gathering this information. Yeah. However, I'm only going to talk about 10 of them, 10 notable ones. Stockton, California had a population of 291,707 people, and they went bust. Why? The housing market. They invested heavily and lost. Housing market. Bridgeport, Connecticut in 1991, they were the first major city to take this route. This is in 1991. You know why? Labor. Labor contracts forced them into bankruptcy. Vallejo, California, population 11,942. In 2008, they had debt in excess of $3 to $4 million. And on top of that, attorney's fees were $8 million. Now, they already had like $4 million in debt. Add another 8 on, now they $12 million in debt. Because they had to have lawyers. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, population 49,528. In 2011, they attempted to make repairs to an outdated trash incinerator so they could keep up with the trash. Left them in $300 million in debt. Pritchard, Alabama in 2009. This was the second time. They filed the first time in 1999. Central Falls, Rhode Island. 2011, they filed bankruptcy. Desert Springs, California, 2000. They filed bankruptcy. Westfall, Pennsylvania, 2009, bankruptcy. And Moffett, Oklahoma, 2007, they declared bankruptcy. San Bernardino, California, they declared bankruptcy because of property values were down and sales taxes were down. They had a deficit of $45 million. Now, I started this piece because I was amazed that Detroit had gone bankrupt. And I was wondering, is this a result of the pandemic? No, the pandemic happened in 2019. But these people were already in trouble. They were already failing. And so, with that being said, when the pandemic came, they absolutely couldn't hold on. Now, by the time 2019, most of these guys are already deep in the bankruptcy court. They're already deep in the system. But these residual effects of them having financial difficulties caused them to just fall over the edge. And what else could they do but declare bankruptcy? They declared a Chapter 9. I think we talked about Chapter 9 before, but I'll put it up again what the requirements are to file a Chapter 9. Because only companies can file Chapter 9. The individuals can't file those. Now, back when Detroit was in debt, it had $18 billion in debt. $18 billion. That's the largest in U.S. history. Jefferson County, Alabama, in 2011, when they filed, they had $4.2 billion in debt. Now, bankruptcies usually result in increased taxes because when you're all done, you got to pay people. You gotta try to keep the city going. So, usually, it's increased taxes, increased services for trash, water, and all of that, reduced benefits for workers, and then you got to pay the receivers, the people who are keeping your bankruptcy alive, who are keeping up with the payments, the emergency managers that you bring in to take over the city, and of course, who else? The lawyers. All of this affects your future borrowing ability, just like a poor credit score. Now, the policymakers in these towns and cities should consider the cost before filing bankruptcy. Now, I keep going back to Detroit because ultimately, what bailed them out? The pension fund. That's what bailed them out. People had to give up their pensions in order to keep the city going. Now, I'm going to tell you, I love my city. My adopted city, my original city. I love my city. But I can't give up my pension. That's all I got. Would you? I don't know. I don't think. I mean, eventually, they're going to get it because they're the ones that make the checks. And whether you agree to it or not, it's going to happen. But it's wrong. Now, I'm just saying, we're in economic downturn again. Usually, the only thing that takes us out of this kind of a crisis is a war. And you keep hearing on television, they're threatening to do this and they're threatening to do that. Keep your eye on it. But it is what it is. And the final analysis is, God is sovereign. That's all I can say. They're not going to frighten me into getting a passport and running away. Every country is having their own issues. I started doing some research on the African return, the year of return, where they were encouraging African Americans to come back to the motherland. I'm going to do a piece on it when I feel better. But it was not the year of return. From what I can gather, it was the year of no return. Not very good. In the meantime, what do you think? Do you think if a city goes through bankruptcy, that ultimately the people should be the ones to get them out of it? We didn't put them in it. Let me know in your comments. I know this has been short and sweet. I hope you get something out of it. And remember, you don't know what you don't know. Thanks for listening.